You know, I think Disney absolutely made the right call by putting Artemis Fowl on Disney Plus instead of showing it in theaters, because now it's going to be that much harder to show what kind of a box office bomb this is going to be. I knew almost nothing about Artemis Fowl 6 months ago. It was some young adult series about a kid genius. That was really all I knew. So when the first trailer came out, I thought it actually didn't look that bad. The story seemed alright, the CGI was okay, it looked like it was being used well, the cinematography seemed decent. And then I actually read the first 2 books. I was maybe halfway through the first book when I got a solid understanding of how much of an utter betrayal this movie was going to be from the source material. It just, the differences that you actually see in the trailer alone are bad enough. When you actually sit down to watch the movie, so many more things fall apart. Alright, I'll get this out of the way first. The movie itself is not an utter failure. It's not complete garbage. It's not great. We're talking substandard kids movie, but it could be worse. As an adaptation, it's another Percy Jackson. There are some elements that work. The cinematography wasn't that bad. A lot of the set design was actually really great. CGI for the most part is used effectively, except for one scene, which I'll get to in a minute. The kid that got to play Artemis wasn't that bad. I try to be a little more lenient to child actors because they don't have the years of experience that other actors normally would. Artemis in the books has a bit of nuance to him. On the outside, he's this, cunning, sinister mastermind who will do whatever it takes to achieve his end goals. But there are scenes occasionally, like when he's interacting with his parents, where there's a bit of vulnerability there. There's a bit of desire for his parents to be healthy and happy. It's a bit of him being a normal kid, and I think it's one of the best elements about the book. You get that in small ways, the way the movie is written, but you don't have the breadth of experience to really back it up in a suitable way. Again, not trying to knock on the kid, and maybe in a few years he'll be something legendary. No, my big problem though was with the writing. Most of the dialogue is okay, but every once in a while you get a really cringy line, something that's overly saccharine or something that doesn't really fit the characters. At one point early on, Artemis is talking to his father and the father says, "You used to believe in magic," and Artemis responds, "All I want is to believe in you." At one point, Root, played by Judi Dench, says, "Get the 4-leaf clover out of here," which is weird because the books already have swear words covered. One of the best ones has to be near the very end of the movie, where Holly Short, a captain in a fairy army, is talking with Artemis, and she says, "Are we friends, Artemis Fowl?" And he responds, "We are, forever friends." And if you've read the first book, I imagine you are currently screaming. But I could forgive the terrible dialogue if it weren't for a number of choices that the movie made that don't help, don't make sense, or detract from the overall story. The big one that I hated was the very beginning, where Mulch Diggums, a giant dwarf, is kidnapped by some shadow group. We never really find out who they are. I guess they're supposed to be like a secret government group. And they get him to tell the story. The framing device is Mulch Diggums, one of the characters in the story, narrating the whole story. The reason you can get away with a similar framing device in something like The Princess Bride is because it allows the movie to skip over the non-essential elements and get to the good part, as the kid asked. The only reason this framing device was set up was so they could have a cool final scene, which I'm not going to spoil here, don't worry. Now, the movie does attempt to largely adapt the first book while taking elements from the second book. And the second book is quite ruined. There are pieces of a story that do function well in that regard, but they took a lot of shortcuts and they changed a lot of things up for the worse. For starters, it's Disney, so of course, Artemis's mother is dead, which was a shame because she provided a lot of the emotional conflict in the first book, which made Artemis a much richer character. And the, what I'll call the B plot of the movie, is all about Artemis rescuing his father from some mysterious cloaked assassin who, I don't want to give too much away. I will give a full review about this eventually when I do a Book Was Better review on it. It is not great. Like I said, the sequel is ruined. Let's see. Butler was Artemis's trusted bodyguard, but his name was changed from Butler to Dom, so I'm sure Dominic Noble's gonna have a lot of fun with this one. I'm not even sure why they made that change. That Butler was his name. In fact, the first book said the Butler family was where we got the word butler from. Artemis doesn't know that his father is a criminal mastermind, even though the first book opens and Artemis is already established as a budding criminal mastermind. And like 3 days later, at the very end of the movie, he completely accepts this new persona of his as a criminal mastermind. Like, that was fast. There is no elf book that Artemis had to copy. Holly's backstory was completely revamped. Juliet was Butler's sister in the book. She is now his niece, and she is completely useless in the entire story. I'm honestly not sure why she's there. To be fair, there are some amusing lines. Most humans are afraid of gluten. How do you think they'd handle goblins? Okay, that one did get a chuckle out of me. And at one point we get Mulch arguing with Root, and he says, "Look at us arguing like two hippos with a throat infection." Because they both talk like this, it was kind of appropriate. Oh, but speaking of Mulch, oh my god, the CGI when, so, dwarves in the Artemis Fowl universe are known for tunneling through dirt in a particular way by unhinging their jaws and crapping the dirt back out. And the movie shows you this. And it's horrifying. You got a test you gotta study for, a paper you really gotta get written. Watch that one scene, you won't want sleep anymore. More effective than coffee. There are a few scenes, despite what I said about the cinematography, I do have some criticism because there are some scenes where the frame rate just like drops to like 10 frames a second. They're going for a trippy appearance and it just looks awful. There's no bio bomb, and Cudgeon's arc was completely ruined, so good luck following him up in the sequel. Now, they are claiming that there's still a possibility of sequels. Go ahead and make them, because I'll just make more reviews out of them. I actually had some high hopes for this movie after I saw, like almost immediately after I saw the first trailer, but the fan backlash that happened so quickly put me off this movie series actually developing into anything. The books aren't that bad, actually. Clearly meant for a younger audience, so, you know, I'm not like dedicated to them, but there is definitely something good within them. Artemis Fowl's an interesting character. I think the adventures are told pretty well, and it's a clever way to teach moral ambiguity to kids through literature. The movie is your standard Hollywood adaptation where one guy skimmed the first book and ignored the rest of the series. Watch it if you want a good cringe, but otherwise its only purpose is to shut the kids up for an hour and a half.